Hey, y'all, I'm Lee Bratcher, the president of the Texas Blockchain Council, and welcome to the Texas Blockcast, where we talk about how Texas is becoming a leader in Bitcoin, blockchain, and crypto innovation. Today, my wife Becca had a chance to sit down with Yusuf Nessary, one of the co-founders and the chief operations officer for Built with Bitcoin. Yusuf also joined us for a conversation at a nonprofit called My Possibilities, talking about Built with Bitcoin and what that the Bitcoin space can do for the philanthropy world, for improving the human flourishing of the communities in which we live.
Since that time in 2017, we've built schools in Rwanda, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, El Salvador. We're doing work in Indonesia and Southeast Asia. And our mission and goal is to be able to build 100 schools in 100 different countries by 2030, completely using Bitcoin. And we've done 10 schools in 10 different countries thus far.
The conversation with Yusuf that Becca got to have with Yusuf, I think, was one that she was really pumped to have. She's been following Built with Bitcoin for a while now, and she and I both have been impressed with the work that they're doing overseas in West Africa, in Central America, literally building schools with Bitcoin donations and also providing a sustainable source of revenue for different villages and schools with Bitcoin mining. So we're pretty thrilled with his story, what he's been able to do with his team and his co-founders, and we look forward to continuing to work with him in the future. He's out of Houston, Texas, so for those of you in Texas, just be sure to reach out to him, give him a follow on Twitter, and we can't say enough how much we respect him. So hope you enjoy this conversation between Becca and Yusuf.
Well, welcome to the TBC. We're so glad that you're here. My name is Becca. I'm just going to ask a few questions and we'll dive into more about Built with Bitcoin. So I have Yusuf Nessary.
Nessary.
Okay, here with us today. If you could just introduce yourself and introduce your organization, Built with Bitcoin.
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Yusuf Nessary. I'm the co-founder and director of philanthropy for the Built with Bitcoin Foundation. Theoretically, we are a 501c3, a nonprofit, a organization geared towards providing access to natural resources, quality education, and sustainable farming, all through the power of Bitcoin. And we focus on four main facets or pillars in our foundation. That is the mental health, physical, environmental, as well as the financial health of communities around the world. So we have a mantra within our organization that we don't just build schools, we build communities. Mm-hmm. And that takes a lot of trust. It takes a lot of effort and time. And for us, we utilize Bitcoin to, in my estimation, its best use case, and that is philanthropy.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Okay, so just a little bit more about your personal background. Where are you originally from, and what's your professional/work background?
So I'm the son of two Afghan refugees that came here to the United States in 1980. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. Growing up, we lived in a very low-income environment. And what happened was my father, wanting to, kind of create a better quality of life for his family, fell to a lot of predatory practices to the banking system, to the fiat industry. And he was accepting, all of these credit cards and different financial circumstances in order to kind of better the lives of his children and his family. So what that did was it kind of strong-held my father to not allow him to make some, financially mature decisions. So my father, in the span of 40 years, filed for bankruptcy not once but twice. So what that did, it kind of minimized our progress, my sister and I, to be able to go to school, to the school that we wanted to go to be able to live in the environment and community that we want to live in. And so that taught me when I first found out about Bitcoin, why it is so powerful. But nonetheless, my parents, the environment that they created for us was very positive. Even though we lived in a low-income neighborhood, we never felt low income within our household. And so that kind of confidence that my father and my mother instilled in us is something that is coming out in fruition nowadays. So my background is in global health and African studies. And initially I wanted to become a doctor, and that's the way that I wanted to, help the world, quote unquote. But I soon found out in 2009, I went to Rwanda for the very first time, and I touched the ground of Africa. And that is where my life truly changed. I learned about a people and an environment that I had never seen before. And I said to myself, you know what? I want to come back here one day. I want to come back to Africa. I want to be able to do something because these individuals inspired me so much. And I tell this to folks all the time. Afghanistan is the country that gave me life, but it is Rwanda that is the country that gave my life purpose. And so that purpose came through in 2014, where I started my very first nonprofit. And it was a organization called Zamzam Water, where we were building water well projects around the world, specifically in Asia and Africa. And then in 2017, I received an email about a potential fraudulent financial activity on a contribution that had came in, a very significant contribution that came in. And what led is for me to reach out to this individual and, thank them for their anticipated contribution, but say, hey, is there another form of payment that you can make? So imagine the position that I was in, because this financial platform that I was using at the time flagged this contribution as potential fraud because of where it came from in the world. It came from Macedonia.
Okay.
Which was the IP address. And, when you're fundraising for a nonprofit, it's so difficult to get that contribution, to allow someone to go onto your site, to make that contribution and have, the inspiration behind it, to thus then be like, oh, so sorry, we're not able to accept this. Is there another form of payment? And that individual on the other side responded back to me with one line: do you accept Bitcoin? And Becca, I had no idea what Bitcoin was.
Okay.
I had zero idea. And so I did what everyone else would do. I went to Google and I typed in, what is Bitcoin? ? Literally. And all of these things came up, as you can imagine: negative, positive, mainly negative, money laundering, terrorism, the Silk Road, and all these things. So I'm thinking to myself, do I really want to get involved in this? What is this? What is Bitcoin, right? So what happened was I was having a conversation with this individual back and forth via email. And I was asking him questions. And then he was responding to me. I was like, oh my goodness, this is actually something extremely positive, very efficient, cost effective.
So you're asking him questions of what Bitcoin is?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I was being orange pilled.
Sure. Yeah.
I was being orange pilled via email. And the person on the other side was Ray Yusuf.
Okay. So that was one of my questions later on, is how y'all got connected. Okay.
Absolutely. And Ray Yusuf is the founder and CEO of Paxful, and he's also the co-founder of Built with Bitcoin. Okay. So we teamed up right after that and said, he had a dream. His dream was he wanted to build 100 schools around the world using Bitcoin. He just didn't have the means or the infrastructure to be able to do it. So I had already established that. I already had built schools, water projects. I had already made contacts around the world. And so it was like a beautiful marriage, so to speak, professionally, for us to be able to work together. And from there, we built our first school that same year in Rwanda.
Oh, that's very
So everything
special.
full circle,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so since then, we've been able to build schools in Rwanda, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, El Salvador, and we are growing into Ghana and in Southeast Asia as well too. So point
Very
being,
cool.
from that one initial question that I had about what is Bitcoin, we were able to disrupt an entire industry, so to speak, when it comes to philanthropy, to utilize Bitcoin for its best, most positive use case. And that is to create a more transparent, cost-effective, and accessible means to be able to push work out.
Sure. Very cool. All right. So you kind of answered my next couple of questions. It was how you first heard about Bitcoin. So was there anything besides emailing with Ray Yusuf, books or other contacts that you knew of that were telling you about Bitcoin, or was it really just like talking with him?
In 2017, there wasn't as much information or education as there is now, right?
Sure,
There wasn't as much opportunity to be able to speak to individuals directly. At least for myself, I was not from the space, so I understand when folks are not truly able to understand or learn about Bitcoin. So that's why education about Bitcoin for me is so important. So sometimes you can get lost in Bitcoin Twitter. It is truly a rabbit hole.
It really is.
Right?
Yeah.
And so there are individuals that I truly try to associate myself with in their material. The Little Bitcoin book by Alex Gladstein and a couple other folks, that was one of the very first books that I ever read. Super easy to read. If individuals have not been able to read that yet, I highly recommend getting it from Amazon or any other site. The Bitcoin Standard, obviously, is one that it's extremely impressive and easy to read, and kind of takes your mind to a place where you're thinking, oh my goodness, like the fiat standard is truly not the future, and Bitcoin is here. Not only is it here, but it is here to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love to hear that. I totally believe that as well. Okay. Have you found a good... Well, I'm going to move on to the next question. Okay. So now we're going to dive even deeper into
Sure.
Built with Bitcoin, the organization background. And so my first question is, when did you meet your co-founder and start dreaming up Built with Bitcoin? So you already had Zamzam Water.
Correct.
Did you merge that to create Built with Bitcoin? And then how did you and Ray, because was he in Macedonia?
No, he actually wasn't.
Oh, he wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he actually sold some Bitcoin for someone to make a contribution using a gift card.
Oh,
So he
okay.
used his own platform and had a peer-to-peer kind of transaction in order to fulfill the donation. But unfortunately, the financial platform that I was using, which was US-based, you can imagine the compliance that we have to deal with being a US-based NGO, where it came from and the amount, because it was such a significant amount. Imagine making that contribution in Bitcoin. It could be anything. It could be $1 billion. It can be $10 worth of Bitcoin, and you wouldn't get flagged whatsoever. And so when it came to our relationship and understanding one another, he saw the track record that I had with Zamzam to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to bring the same kind of culture, the same type of aggressive nature, in the sense that we wanted things to be as transparent as we possibly can. So Zamzam is a volunteer-based fiat organization, traditional.
Mm-hmm.
Built with Bitcoin is completely and 100% Bitcoin related. And everything that we accomplish there has to do with Bitcoin and its power. And for us, he wanted to truly be able to show the world in a positive way that Bitcoin can be used for good, and social good at that. And so that's where Built with Bitcoin came. And I had experience in the nonprofit sector for about 10 years. And I brought in a layer of an infrastructure to it, right? We brought our brand, we put our brand together. Ray brought his resources, I brought mine, and we just collectively worked together on this. We didn't ask anyone for permission. We didn't ask anyone whether this is okay or not. We just went with it because this was something that we had inside of ourselves. Mm-hmm. Ray had this passion that catalyzed my own passion to be able to, to say, you know what? People in areas around the world don't have the financial means or the financial accessibility that you and I have here living in the States. I never truly understood that, even while I was running Zamzam, right? Until I could fully kind of change my lens and my perspective on things, which Bitcoin does to you.
It does.
It makes you look at life in the world and how it operates in a completely different outlook. So the intrinsic value that Bitcoin brings, not a lot of people talk about. And I think that needs to kind of be brought into light more, of understanding that it's not just about money. It is money. It is hard money. But it also has intrinsic value that allows people to make more financially mature decisions. That's why I wish that Bitcoin was around when my father first came to this country. Maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't have made those decisions to get those credit cards that had 24% APR or 35% APR to put himself in this black hole, so to speak, of debt, right? To where, the bank said, well, the only opportunity that you have here now is or the IRS to say that you could just file for Chapter 11. That's what my dad did twice. And so a refugee immigrant coming from overseas, not knowing how to speak English that well, to file for bankruptcy twice in a span of 40 years, that's extremely crippling, right? And so now, as we've grown older and he's, gotten more financially mature, Bitcoin has kind of catalyzed this education for my entire family, including my wife, who's now, kind of understanding about Bitcoin even more. So I'm orange pilling people left and right.
Yeah.
Whether it's Thanksgiving dinner, whether it's during Eid, whether it's during breakfast. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, this is what we did. Oh, you built a school using Bitcoin. So what is Bitcoin? This kind of creates this kind of conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. I love talking about Bitcoin. In fact, my dad is coming tonight, so I'm trying to orange pill him to the event.
I would love to meet him.
Yeah, you have to meet him.
I would love to meet him.
Yes, it's a process. Okay, so what was Built with Bitcoin's first project? You mentioned this earlier. Was it the school in Rwanda?
Yes.
Or
So
water well?
for us,
Okay.
our first project ever is not a physical infrastructure. It
Okay.
is building relationships.
Mhm.
And that's the first step to any project that you ever want to be able to accomplish.
I'm curious how you get connected with these. I mean, have to be rural, I'm sure, very, how do you hear about who
It
needs
has to do
this?
with experience on the ground.
Okay.
Everything that we do, Becca, is
Yeah.
on the ground. There's no like you cannot sit away and sit on your computer and work from home in the line of work that we're in.
Right.
And we take pride in this.
Mhm.
So we created something called the blockchain of philanthropy.
Okay.
Right? And I'm sure you all would be able to appreciate this. For us, it was extremely important to be on the ground, to be able to hear the stories of the individuals, of what they were going through on a daily basis, to understand their pain points.
Mhm.
So let's say we go to a community, me thinking that this is what they need is the incorrect way. It's understanding from them directly what is the need of the community in order for them to thrive and have a better quality of life. That is the way that you can have a successful project. I'll give you an example. In the Kasibijiji village in Bugesera district of Rwanda is where we built our very first school. It's a nursery school for students aged 3 to 6. And the first step that you can ever take is land, right? How can we have a piece of land that we can actually build this infrastructure on? Imagine
Yeah.
coming to West Texas and getting a piece of land from an individual. Imagine getting that land from that individual donated to you. That's our model.
Okay.
Our model is to get land donated. Why? Because we want to create a mutual relationship amongst the community and the foundation
Mhm.
so that there's equal amounts of equity. Donating land to a foreign foundation or organization is extremely difficult, right? Because these individuals, that may be the last thing that they truly have to their name. And for them to say, you know what, we want to invest in the future of our children, we want to invest in the future of this community, we are willing to be able to do this. That doesn't come easily. So that takes time. Not just money, not sats, but it actually takes time, right? So we get land donated to us. We have an MOU, a memorandum of understanding with the community. And then we go in and see, okay, how many children are here? What kind of access do we have to the community? What is their water source? Where's their electricity source? Where's their vegetation source? Many communities that we work in are extremely isolated. They don't have electricity. They've never seen a TV screen. They don't have any internet connectivity. So those kinds of resources are provided on behalf of the foundation.
Okay.
What's provided on behalf of the community is the resources and the access to the individuals themselves for us to learn, to listen, and to be able to understand, right? So for us, building the school is just one piece of this never-ending relationship that you have there, right? There's no time where we're finished with a project, so to speak. And for us, it's about quality over quantity. So we have created this, this vision that I'm sure we'll talk about later on of building this X number of schools around the world.
Mhm.
But for us, it is how can we create a sustainable solution to where these communities that we're working in, Becca, are independent.
I mean, honestly, that's one of my biggest questions here is how do you maintain those relationships? So you're not just setting them up, leaving. And I know you travel quite a bit. You're probably touching base, but what's that like?
For us, it is improbable, illogical, and impractical to think that you can continue to fund a project moving forward. That is charity because all you're doing is putting a Band-Aid over the problem.
Exactly.
And it continues to scab and you keep picking at that scab because it bothers you, right? Philanthropy is long-term. Fiat is charity. Bitcoin is philanthropy.
I
Because
totally see it.
It is
Yes.
it is always about the long-term game. And so for us, establishing this rapport and this relationship with the community, that is the proprietary asset that we truly have, right? Is because the community will thus be responsible for the maintenance and the sustainability of the project itself. When you relay that responsibility upon them and saying, hey, if this school project, if this water project, if this farming system is not maintained properly, it's not going to exist anymore. That is when and only when the community will rise up alongside you. Again, it's about a partnership, a mutual respect amongst one another, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a requirement, but they understand that, okay, if we don't maintain and sustain this, then my child is not going to be able to go to school tomorrow. We are working with people here, Becca, that mothers, 5 children from their households come to our schools. There's an individual, her name is Immaculate, who has written poems about us while we go to the schools, when we go for community engagement events, that has advocated for us, pushing the initiative of Bitcoin and understanding the true power behind it amongst our community members, saying that Bitcoin allowed this school to be possible. Now we have to continue to respect this project by maintaining it. So like that right there is something that in the fiat world, I truly didn't feel, because it was always about, okay, we've got this amount of money, we got to just, we got to push this number of projects out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with Bitcoin, the bear market is what truly taught me that sustainability is the biggest key factor.
How big is the Built with Bitcoin team?
So we have an amazing group of individuals that are dedicated and committed. So again, it doesn't necessarily matter on the number of people that are working with us, but it is the passion that is behind them. It's the quality of the empathy and the respect that they have for the work that we do. So I would say here in the States, we have about 10 or so folks that are working with us, but around the world, we have a huge network of individuals that are willing and ready and able to accomplish projects for us. So at any given moment in time, if we have multiple schools in multiple regions and multiple projects being built, I could be managing about 100 people at a time. And so being able to communicate with folks that are speaking different languages and from different cultures, me being able to travel when I was younger has allowed me to kind of understand folks better. So that's why I emphasize truly on getting a degree in sociology, to kind of understand culture, understand different types of people. But the best teacher is always being able to travel. So I was very fortunate. When I was younger, my father worked for the airlines, and we had
great.
flight benefits. And so we certainly took advantage of that when we were younger, and we would travel around the world. And that truly allowed me to open up my eyes to understand different types of faith, different cultures, different languages, different food, music, etc. And so, I use all of that experience in the work that we do within the foundation itself.
That's very cool. Okay, so what has been the most touching project to you personally that Built with Bitcoin has done?
Every project for me. I mean, you have to understand, Becca, the amount of time that it takes to accomplish a project, the amount of effort, the amount of passion and love, sometimes sadness that goes into it as well too, because you truly understand when you're on the ground, there's a level of trauma that you experience and hear about. So to kind of balance those things out, I give a lot of homage and respect to my wife, Nadia, who has been my support system, through many of this. And she's been the biggest supporter of what we accomplished. So having a great support system around myself personally and those within the foundation has been extremely important. So I would answer, whenever we accomplish a project and we go back to the community for the very first time and see the change of the people, because we're not able to go every single month or every other month, but every quarter or every other year that we're able to kind of travel there to see the impact on the faces of the family members, the mothers and the fathers and the children and the teachers. That is extremely gratifying. When we go to the community engagement events, that is truly where the inspiration and motivation to continue to be able to accomplish is, because you're seeing the fruits of the labor of the entire community. Community members take part in the construction of every single project that we accomplish. We employ individuals within the communities to be able to give back to their community by building these infrastructures, whether they have children or not. What this does, again, is kind of strengthens the bond of the community, right? It creates, it takes a village, so to speak. Yeah. It truly does. It truly does. Whether you're running a Fortune 500 company or whether you're running a, international organization like ours, it takes more than the people behind the scenes. It takes a lot of people on the ground there as well. So seeing the faces of the mothers and the fathers, and the children, of course, that is truly the most motivating factor for us to continue to work. And Ray has also this heart that kind of catalyzed the work that we're doing. If it wasn't for him, Built with Bitcoin would not be around. Yeah, I truly want to emphasize that. Like it honestly wouldn't, and I would have never been introduced to Bitcoin. And I pay him, all the respect that I possibly can for introducing me to this new world, so to speak, of information and data and money, and try to understand what money truly is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Man, I love that. I think the biggest thing that I love about Bitcoin is the philosophy behind it, which is exactly
100%.
what you're talking about. So
100%. Yeah.
All right. So the organization mission going forward, where do you see Built with Bitcoin in 5 years?
Oh my goodness. In 5 years, I see Bitcoin not as a speculative asset. I see Bitcoin as a tool for humanity.
And specifically Built with Bitcoin.
And Built with Bitcoin is seen as a vehicle of that tool for humanity, right? We have, our vision is by 2030, we want to be able to build 100 schools in 100 countries around the world. And I think that we can surpass that goal eventually. For us, it's all about raising awareness of our work. We appreciate, the Texas Blockchain Council for, inviting us and, talking about the work that we're doing. But for us, the biggest stakeholders are the Bitcoiners themselves in our own ecosystem. Like we have the biggest cheerleaders in our ecosystem, right?
For sure. Yeah.
And for us to be able to push work, like the work that we're doing, we want to be able to welcome people with open arms about this work. We don't want to keep things, hidden away. We want to keep things as transparent and as open as we possibly can. We have a saying in the space, don't trust, verify.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we spent the first 5 years of our foundation doing the grunt work of what we've been able to accomplish. We came out with our 5-year impact report, and we launched everything on stage at the Bitcoin conference in Miami in 2021, where we opened up, BWB to the rest of the world and said, hey, come join us. Come join us on this journey of Bitcoin philanthropy to understand that we can disrupt this archaic industry that is always seen in a negative light.
Yeah.
Corruption, and where's the money truly going, and is work actually being done, and what's actually happening. But there's also work, and our work shows and proves that we can accomplish all of this and still welcome everybody to join us in this effort as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so what is the biggest need to get the organization to that point? Is it contacts? Is it money? Is it, you kind of touched on this already, but.
It's all of the above. To pinpoint one specific facet is we are we take a holistic approach to everything that we do. For us, Bitcoin is one facet of the work that we're accomplishing. It's 4 key pillars, right? We're focusing on mental, environmental, financial, and for us, it is understanding that Bitcoin is the catalyst to everything that we accomplish, right? But it is not the only thing that we're accomplishing here. For us, raising awareness of our work is the number one. It doesn't take anything. There's no sats that you have to send over to us. Seeking us out on social media, Twitter, Instagram, through our website, contributing towards our work is obviously very important. We are a 501c3. So what I always try to tell people here in this space is, if there's a tax burden that you have, why don't you offset that reinvesting back in the Bitcoin ecosystem instead of giving it to the government? Why would you want to accomplish that? Why would you want to do that instead of being able to do work that is going to be done and that you can direct and navigate it with us, right? So we implore folks to be able to come and join us in this effort, to be able to accomplish work that is generational. It's really absolutely generational.
Yeah. That was the number one thing that I told my husband when I first heard about Built with Bitcoin is, look what they're doing for all these kids, who they get to reap all these benefits of the communities that y'all are building. So very cool. Okay, so how can people like me get involved and help? Obviously, spreading the word. Is there anything else specifically? That like
for us,
like
it's more so kind of understanding why the work is so important, right? Like you said, the work that we do for children is extremely important to us, obviously, but the stories behind the impact that we make in the community is extremely important as well. So I think learning about the stories of the individuals that are impacted by the work that we're accomplishing is extremely important, and then spreading that as well. We want to bring an opportunity for individuals that may not feel like they have a voice, for folks to understand where they're coming from, to understand how Bitcoin can impact our lives in a positive way so that we reach this universal adoption that we're all seeking and that we know is going to come. We know it's coming. It's just a matter of we have to be able to position ourselves to provide the most positive route for folks to be able to take, right? So beyond contributions directly to the foundation, obviously, beyond sharing our content online, it's to kind of do your own due diligence in understanding what kind of impact this is truly making, and then that in itself will create a ripple effect, a natural, inspiring, hopefully, ripple effect to where it's a very organic kind of relationship building. So we are continuously building our ambassadorship for different regions around the world. Contacts in different regions around the world to allow us to be able to do our work. None of us can do I cannot do this by myself. I've not been able to visit every country on the planet just yet. I hope to be able to do that one day. But my wife may say, "Hey, let's pump the brakes on that a bit." But nonetheless, understanding folks around the world and having them have a stake in what we're doing, that's going to be extremely important for us moving forward from a sustainable perspective.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today. Just to wrap up, where can we send listeners to find you on the internet? You mentioned Twitter, Instagram. Go ahead and tell us those handles.
Yeah. So on Twitter, we're super active on social media. So at Built with BTC for our Twitter account, at Built with Bitcoin for our Instagram, and builtwithbitcoin.org for our website. Our financial reports are there, photographs, videos, content. You can always reach out to me directly through our website. And we're always open to answer any questions folks may have. And we truly appreciate the time.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for listening. What a great conversation between Becca and Yusuf. We love hearing about the different applications of Bitcoin and blockchain, and this specifically how we're going outside of the financial services and the macroeconomic environment to talk about philanthropy and what we can do to build up healthy communities. So be sure to check out Built with Bitcoin and follow Yusuf on Twitter, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, it's Amy. Click over here to subscribe, click over here for more content, and we'll see you next time.